I made about 60 videos in 60 days, and in this video I'm gonna talk about everything I've learned in the process. Before this, I had zero experience in any sort of filmmaking, editing, or talking to a camera. For all practical purposes, I was as bad at making videos as your stereotypical grandma. I think one very important thing that gets overlooked every time you try something new is to answer the question why exactly you're doing this. Especially in something like YouTube, where people go years without seeing any returns, there needs to be some additional motivation. And it can be quite simple really. Let's take my example. Like I said, I had absolutely no experience with anything similar in the past. I studied astrophysics and played sports in my spare time, so there was no reason for me to believe that I'd be good at this or even like doing it. But one day, somebody close to me asked me what my ideal career would be if I could be anything. And in a split second, I answered that I'd like to be an influencer. I'd have more impact, and most importantly, I'd be more like Carl Sagan than I am today. Of course, that was all banter, but that got me thinking that I really mean it. And it was that conversation that has kept me going on the hard days and really enjoy myself on the easy days. The point is, it doesn't matter how trivial or petty it is, having a definite purpose was and is an important part of why I've been able to do this, even through a trekking accident and a surgery in the past 2 months. One thing that has stayed with me is that to be good at something, you need to fill a quota of mistakes and learn from them. It sounds kind of stupid that a beginner made 60 videos in 60 days, but there's a good reason I kept up this pace. I wanted to make as many mistakes as I could in as little time as possible. Think about it this way. If two beginners were learning to sketch and one of them decided to make one sketch every day for 60 days in a row, and the other beginner decided that they'll focus on only 1 or 2 sketches per month, sure, the second person would have better sketches, but I'm willing to argue that the first person would have better skills. This is especially true in complex activities like making videos, where there's just so much to learn. I've learned about lighting and scripting and audio and even talking to a camera, which mind you is much more difficult than it looks. And much of this comes from doing something, cringing at it, and improving it the next time. I mean, just look at the crap that I put out earlier and how the incremental improvements have added up. In my case, as should be the case with most of you, I didn't really know myself when it came to making videos. I didn't know my strengths and weaknesses, what I enjoyed, and what I really wanted to do. For that reason, in the past 60 days, I've done pretty much all kinds of videos. I've streamed myself playing games, I've done tributes and voiceovers, I've done well-scripted content and impromptu videos, and my topics have included finance, philosophy, comedy, science, books, gaming, and just a lot of other things that I'm passionate about. I've made short videos, long videos, and super long videos. I have tried hyper editing and not editing at all, and a whole bunch of other experiments that I could go on and on about. Is this a good strategy to grow a channel? Probably not. But because my target was to make as many mistakes as I could, this was the best way to do it. And in the process, I tried to be open and realistic about my strengths and my weaknesses. Here's what I found. And please note, I'm not trying to brag or to demean myself. First of all, English is quite literally my third language and my accent is quite different from that of my audience. So clarity and familiarity isn't my strength. On top of that, having had very rigorous scientific training, my language is a little dense. And so I've been working on making my sentences simpler and my accent more understandable. My strength that counters this weakness is that the quality of my scripts, my content, and my research is very high for a beginner irrespective of the topic. So I realized that making videos that make these qualities stand out is the right move. Second, while I'm quite confident about the way I look, I'm not exactly the material to play a protagonist in a Western movie, at least the way it is right now. Read between the lines and infer what you want to, but the bottom line is, the way I look isn't by itself going to get you to click on my videos, and I understand that. Strictly speaking, it is a weakness, one that I don't have much control over. But now that I realize it, I know that my focus needs to be on being energetic, entertaining, and valuable to watch. My strength to counter this weakness is the fact that I'm an astrophysicist, and that's a very sexy title to hold. Most people don't have it. So again, that is what I intend to leverage to my benefit. All of this reflection brings me to a great formula to identify your niche. Now, different people have different ways of looking at it, depending on how much you value money, channel metrics, or the sense of fulfillment. But I think a great place to get started after you've made a good deal of videos is to ask yourself 3 yes or no questions for every topic you've made a video about. These are what you know, what you enjoy, and what the audience wants. This is a great Venn diagram to show different possibilities. Clearly, if I make videos on things I know about and I'm interested in, but nobody wants to watch them really, then these videos are more like personal diaries. You can totally make them, but you can't expect people to join in. Now, if you talk about something you know and people want to learn about, even if you don't enjoy making videos about it, you can totally grow, but it may not be sustainable depending on the kind of person you are. Third, if you talk about things that you like talking about and people like hearing about, but you have very little knowledge on the subject, You are in principle making a cult. As you might imagine, there are successful channels that fall into each of these categories. But I think a combination of intellectual honesty, connecting with the audience, and enjoying the process is what I'm looking for. So here's the same Venn diagram filled with all the channel topics that I have tried. Clearly, there's quite a bit on there. Before I started the channel, I told myself that I'll experiment for 2 months without worrying about the metrics. And now that I am at the 60-day mark, now is the time to make decisions about the direction of the channel. There's this test in art circles called the cringe test. Let's take the sketching example again. When you just start learning to sketch, you'll probably cringe at yourself every time someone else looks at your sketches. That's because there's just so many basic things that you haven't been able to nail down in your sketches so far. The test says that you can start working on big projects when you stop feeling the cringe when someone else looks at your recent sketches. At this point, I feel confident enough that I can show my channel to strangers and not feel cringe about it. So I think now is the right time to move from quantity to quality. That means better research, better editing, and better videos in general. But for that, I'll have to invest more time per video, which means next week onwards, I'll only be able to make 2 long and a couple of short videos per week. As for the topics of those videos, as you might have guessed from my Venn diagram, it's going to focus heavily on science and philosophy related topics, which is great because I came a full circle trying to be more like Carl Sagan again. And I might occasionally experiment with topics in skill development. So if that sounds interesting, definitely subscribe. I hope you got something from this video, and I'll see you in the next one.